What is up, YouTube? And today I'm going to show you guys the team that pretty much sped run me through adventure in less than 3 days and just got me to 14-1 so I could start farming for rubies and fodder the most efficiently outside of Nightmare, of course. And it actually got me to Nightmare as well, which is pretty hilarious because this team is going to be not like zero investment, but pretty low investment and very achievable for you free to play or low spenders. I only spent about $50 so far, but most of it you're going to see wasn't even efficient because I didn't even max dupe any of my characters, even my rares. So you're going to see that this comp is going to be easy to follow, just maybe a day or two of setting it up, and you'll be able to get through adventure very quickly. Now, just to confirm, you could see I'm on day 3 of the check-in. That's basically less than 3 days because when you make your account, you get day 1. So I've been playing for about like 2.5 days, and I was able to pretty much beat all of the Chapter 14 into adventure. And I'll just be showing you guys the team that I recommend using and why they are so good together. So this team is going to revolve around Tio as your main DPS. You don't have to use Tio, but he does synergize with this team very well because it's pretty much a physical team. So get Tio, he's on the banner, he's the best farmer in the game, you're gonna need him anyways for Nightmare farming. So you might as well just, get him ASAP and start using him. But basically with Tio, you want to actually enhance him so that he has 4 gear slots because he's your only damage dealer. So you want to make sure that you have him on this setup. Basically all you don't even need 2 dupes. He doesn't really benefit from it too much because he's not going to die a lot in this comp. But it is nice to have eventually anyways because you will want it for PvP and you will want him at 6 dupes later on for Nightmare farming. So Tio's the main DPS, you're going to put him in the back. Now the other 4 characters, it's going to revolve around these 3 R characters. So Evan, Yui, and Karin. Now Evan and Yui, everyone already knows that they're very good, right? Yui buffs your team with physical damage boost at Transcendence 2, which is kind of the bare minimum for this that you need. And you also get continuous healing. You're also going to see that I don't really even have gear unlocked on her. So yeah, you can do this pretty low investment and get through it. It's just going to make it really easy if you have it unlocked. But for sure, this is the character that you want to bring. So the next character is Evan. So Evan is also a really good character like I mentioned. You do want him at Transcendence 6 because then you get that block rate on his ultimate Shield of Order, which is very important. The Transcendence 3 will actually make it so that your stun chance goes up. This is actually really good because this ability is really underrated, especially if you're fighting like boss stages with like a mini boss before the main boss. What you can actually do is eventually everything else will die and the mini boss is the last one left. You can actually save your swift strikes for it and just stun the boss, and you can use that time to wait for your CDs to come back. So on the harder stages, it's a really good ability, and it just kind of disables an enemy for the entirety of the fight unless they have a cleanse, which is really good. So Evan's a really powerful character. His passive's also amazing. The stun immunity is good in a lot of the adventure modes. Even in chapter 10, a really hard chapter, this is going to be pretty much required. He also has a defense boost, which is very nice. So Evan is like a must bring, and I have a really gimped version of him because this block rate boost is insanely strong. So if you get him to T6, you're going to see that he is super powerful. And then for his gear, you can see that I have him on 3 pieces. The reason why I have him on the weapon is instead of like a weapon and 2 armor is because I misclicked. So you do want 2 armor. He's not going to really do too much damage, although his Swift Strikes does hit pretty hard. Just a really good character. These 2 together, they kind of synergize very well because you're immune to burn, which isn't really a big deal, and stuns. But you also just boost your physical damage, have healing, have a lot of shielding, and Yui also will be able to revive people that end up dying. Now, the other rare character I actually brought into this duo, she's actually rated pretty lowly on a lot of tier lists. For Rebirth, I think she was really good in the original game, is Karin. And the reason why Karin is really good is because she has so much utility with her revive. She has her self-revive, which is very good. She also has another single target revive, which is a 90-second cooldown, which is insanely low. For comparison, you can see Battle Melody Yui's is 112, Evan's skill 2 is 114. If we even look at Tio's abilities, they're going to be a little bit shorter, but those are DPS abilities, right? But if you look at like other support characters, you're going to see that, their cooldowns are like 2 minutes almost, while Karin's revive ability matches like a DPS ability, which is insanely strong. So this is a really good skill. If you actually Transcendence 6 it, you're going to see that it revives 2 allies, so it's like Yui's but even better. So if you can get her to Transcendence 6, she's even stronger. And then her skill 1, the heal, 60-second cooldown, very powerful as well. Removes debuffs, heals a lot, and if you actually get her to Transcendence 2, the cooldown is super low that you can actually kind of spam it. Not really spam, but it's really good. Outside of that, she doesn't really do anything else, but she's mostly here because in the case that Yui dies, no one can revive her. So Karin is here to revive the Yui, and if Karin dies, she has this cheat death passive, which will revive her once, and Yui can also revive after. So running 2 revivers cheeses a lot of mechanics in the game. There's a lot of like death mechanics that also exist, so you can kind of like, you know, ping pong or yo-yo that revives back and forth that cheats it a lot. If you're struggling with like 830, this is the exact team comp that I used, this 4-man core, and you're going to see that it is going to be really easy if you just, you know, cheese a lot of these stages with these revives and these heals and these defensive capabilities. Now, the last slot's really up to you. For me, I personally used a combination of Rook and Lina. So Rook is pretty bad in PvE, I'd say, for the most part, but the one thing he has going for him is his passive is really strong. He gives everyone block rate boost, which is really powerful. He also has an AoE shield, but the cooldown is super long, so it's like the one downside, but it is very good. And then you have this S1, which is like Javelin. This nukes. This can like do a ton of damage, so very powerful ability. Decent option, but not the best. Lina's really good because she has effect resist boost, which will make it so that you get debuffed less, which is really good. You also give a self barrier to yourself, which is going to be very powerful as well. And then you also can boost your damage of your entire team and put defense reduction, which will speed up your runs a lot. On top of that, she has extra healing, which is going to be very powerful as well. And if you actually skill enhance her S1, her basic attack, you're going to see that she also will heal with this attack. So pretty powerful character, definitely a good option. Rook worked for me as well. You could probably use Rudy. Ace I don't really recommend using because he does have a lot of utility as well, but we're looking for something that's defensive in this slot because this team is just basically tanking down and waiting for Tio to kill everything, which can take a while in some cases, but for, you know, the most part, outside of the boss stages, it's still pretty quick. But for the boss stages, it can take a while, but this is mostly going to be to just secure the victory and then, you know, get to the end so you can start farming those really hard stages very easily. Instead of Rook and Lina, you can also use some characters that, you know, have really good passives. For example, if you're struggling against the death effect in Chapter 8, the last boss, you can bring Leo because he brings death immunity. If you're struggling versus stuff that has shock, you can bring Chloe. There's a lot of different options you can bring. You just want to look for stuff with good passives or good defensive capabilities for your team. Lucy's also a good option because she also has poison immunity for some of the stages, so this spot is going to be very flexible. And you're going to see that, you know, my Rook and my Lina also don't really have any gear. I actually took some pieces off of Rook right now, but they're all also at only 2 gear slots unlocked. Now, I will say, when you're fighting the bosses, especially like every 10 stages, because those are technically the boss stages, you might want to end up manualing it sometimes because it just makes it a lot safer. Although it can be tedious, you won't have to really do it for the intermediate stages from 1 to 9, but for like 10, 20, 30, and 40, you'll be able to do it very easily if you manual it a lot of the times because all you really have to do is prioritize keeping your team topped up with heals, having shields up at all times, and also even prioritizing Evan's stun. Now, Tio's abilities, even though you might be really tempted to click them because they're DPS abilities, they're not really going to change the run at all. You just need to keep your team alive in cycle, and you're going to use Tio's abilities basically as filler. This is only when you're manualing though. When you're autoing, of course, it's just going to randomly do stuff, but you know, for the harder stages that you're really stuck on, I actually recommend manualing because even for myself, I did end up manualing some of the stages, even for 1450 and also for 1030 and also for 830, and I found it to be a lot easier when you manual because sometimes the AI can be really funky. Now, before I end this video though, I will say, you know, just because you slot in this team, it doesn't mean that it'll work. You do want to still, you know, 6-star your characters, transcend them if you get dupes, and also upgrade their gear and put them on, you know, good sets with good main stats, just because otherwise, you know, you're just going to get stat checked. But if you do have the right setup and you bring Tio with this 3-man core of rare units, and you also have stuff like, you know, Lina as the 5th slot, or even Rook, or even Rudy and stuff like that, and like just a flex slot, basically, you will be good to go. And I do recommend when you're, you know, summoning to, I mentioned this in my summoning wishlist video, that you abuse the wish list a bit and then put in the characters that you're using in your teams. Rudy and Yui are definitely important to have dupes of. Karin, not as important, but you know, it is okay. She's not really used outside of like cheesing adventure, so you don't really need to go for dupes of her. But for Yui and Evan, you definitely want to make sure that you get as many dupes as you can because they'll be used in some raid bosses and a lot of the dungeons as well. But yeah, this is pretty much the team that I cheesed through adventure with. Definitely something you want to look into if you're struggling. That way you can actually clear all the hard stages, get to 14-1 and start farming fodder here and ruby farming here as well. You're probably not going to jump into Nightmare. Even I didn't jump into it because you need 2 fully built teams. But you know, farming at 14-1 for a bit is going to be extremely good for your account progression because you'll be farming so many rubies. But yeah, pretty much it for this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video.